The Bayou Bengals get routed at home and then reroute their coach's employment status. The Music City train chugs along in Nashville, and Lane Kiffin just cannot lose. All that next, 4th and 1 podcast.
Did we just see anything we just saw? Wow!
Well, it wasn't an upset-filled weekend, but it was a good weekend nonetheless, especially for junkies like us. I am on an incredibly losing streak picking game. So is Simeon. The man sitting next to me through the internet is so hot. I mean, at this point, I think he's only missed on 3 picks overall. And 2 of them coming in like week 2 and 3, and then 1 coming last week. He hasn't missed though. So Robert, it's good to have you back. It's good to see you. So at this point, you're my consultants on all picks moving forward, because we got to get a winner here. We got to sit down, we got to get together, and we got to get a win. How you doing, bud?
You know, we're doing pretty good. We're hanging in there. We're surviving. We're thriving. 2 totally opposite things, but we're both of them.
Hey, you can survive and thrive at the same time if you have a mindset. Let's go ahead and start with the biggest news that happened on Sunday, which didn't start out this way. I expected to wake up with a notification. This notification didn't happen until later in the day. Brian Kelly has been dismissed from the University of Louisiana State, or Louisiana State University, however you want to look at it. Brian Kelly won 71% of his games in the Bayou, and he came from Notre Dame looking for a school that he could basically just roll out the Notre Dame tendencies with bigger talent and a administration all in on football, because he thought that the Notre Dame administration was holding Notre Dame back from winning national championships and that he would get more support at LSU. Well, that did happen, except something just was not right. What is that? I don't know. Robert, I'm sure you have speculations. So where does LSU go from here? What do you speculate went wrong down in Louisiana?
Probably the biggest thing that went wrong was they took a coach that Brian Kelly is not a bad coach.
No, 71% of his
I
games.
just don't think he fit that part of the United States.
Sure.
You know, especially when you're going from a program like Notre Dame that is light years different, not just football-wise, but tradition-wise, culture-wise, you know, that's definitely a big adjustment. And it's also a big conference difference when you're not going from someone who is not in a conference to at that time, the perennial powerhouse of the conference. I also think that what went wrong is I don't think he knew how to connect with the players of LSU. Because a lot of it is also players that are going to Notre Dame are held at a much higher standard, I would say. Not like on the field, but then also academically off the field. So, not saying that LSU isn't, but it's definitely different.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
I don't think there's any argument with that, yeah.
So I think not that he was set up to fail, but I think it was a lot more work than I think he thought he was getting into. Like, as a coach, you're thinking you're just going there to coach football and change young men's lives, getting them ready for the next step. But if he would have came from another SEC school, a Pac-12 school, even like a Big Ten school, I think he would have fared a lot better. But coming from a school like Notre Dame, that's just a totally different planet universe than the rest of college football.
Yeah, I think Brian Kelly, that was a great way to put it. I think it was different than what he thought it was going to be. I think that's the best way he put it. He knows that it means more coming from Louisiana, right? Coming from the SEC, coming from the South. Football is just different. I think everyone recognizes that. But to win 71% of your games, you do that at Notre Dame, guess what? They're going to keep you around a long time, right? Marcus Freeman goes 10-2 this year. Even if they miss the playoffs, fan base is like, okay, well, let's go get them again next year. Brian Kelly did that a bunch of times. But if you do that, and he didn't, I mean, he went 10-2 first season, and then it was 9 wins, and then this outcome, getting blown out by Texas A&M at night and that was his best record at LSU. He was 20-1 previous to Texas A&M at home games at night in Baton Rouge. So as soon as you get blown out and that starts falling down, yes, everyone's going to jump on the bandwagon and show why it is different. LSU doesn't have a president, so the governor had to be involved. Where does LSU go from here? Well, I said it in my open. Lane Kiffin cannot lose. Lane Kiffin, Robert, correctly predicted that Ole Miss would cover the 4.5 on Saturday, and they did that. They got a 9-point win, and I thought that they kind of controlled that football game. The lack of Oklahoma's running offense on Saturday really reared its ugly head against Ole Miss and a defense that was pushed around by Georgia late in that game. But Lane Kiffin is now up for... He will be contacted about the Penn State job. He will be contacted about the Florida job and now the LSU job. Should he leave Ole Miss? I am of the mindset he should not. Because wherever he goes, his clock starts 3 years on making a national championship. Immediately. If he stays at Ole Miss, he can continue going 10-2, 9-3, making the playoffs here and there, making a run every 4 or 5 years. And they'll put a statue of him up there in Oxford. So where should LSU go from here? I guess is that the question. Is it Lane Kiffin or should they look elsewhere?
If I'm LSU, part of me would want to go after Franklin. And I know it's he can't win the big game. But he at least has experience in the SEC. He coached at Vanderbilt. Was he good at Vanderbilt? Listen, it's Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt hasn't been good until the past 2 or 3 years.
Before Clark Lee, it was the teams that he coached at Vanderbilt,
right.
By the way.
So he at least has that connection with the SEC. Granted, it was years ago. And he also, I think, is going to be able to recruit better at LSU, obviously, than at Penn State, because nobody in their right mind, other than kids from Pennsylvania, want to go and stay in the state of Pennsylvania. The select few that do come to Pennsylvania, they're there for a year or two, and they're like, listen, this state is terrible. The weather is terrible. The roads equally as bad as the weather. So, but Franklin probably would be a good fit there. Other than that, I mean, they can always try and get some coordinator out of the NFL. You know, you wave enough money, and LSU's AD loves to throw money around. So,
former athletics, Mr. Woodward, who has now secured the 2 biggest buyouts in college football history between Jimbo, because he was the AD that hired head coach Jimbo Fisher, $76 million, and now Brian Kelly at $54 million. By the way, James Franklin's record at Vanderbilt, he coached 3 seasons there. He went 6-7, 9-4, 9-4. And before this year, that's as good as Vanderbilt got. It was all downhill after those 2 9-4 seasons. So you do have a point with James Franklin. I do think they need someone who knows what it's like to coach in the SEC. Right. Because it has to feel different. They need someone to know the importance of every single Saturday in Baton Rouge, someone to bring the fire back, especially on defense. Because I feel under Brian Kelly that the defense just has not been good. This year, Okay, the defense was a little better, but they should have won a national title with Jaden Daniels. But their defense was historically bad. Both seasons he was there. And then last year, their defense was bad again, but Garrett Nussmeier wasn't as good. So that kind of sorted itself out as you go. Now this year, the defense good. They just relieved Joe Sloan of his duties, but it went from a top 25 offense last year, like 95th in the country this year. So they got to fix the offense. Another curveball to be thrown in here. Are you willing to wait? And if you're going to go after a current football coach, are you going to be willing to wait? Or is that football coach going to be okay with making an announcement before the season's over? And if it's a coach on the verge of a college football playoff, let's just take, for example, don't know anything, like a Clark Lee, right? Are you going to gamble that he's okay spilling the beans early, that he's leaving Vanderbilt, and until the playoffs are done to make that announcement? Or are you, because at that point, there's only one transfer portal, you can't get a new transfer class in. There's no spring portal now, so you can't wait and get one in. So you got to start recruiting the portal like next month, right? When kids start jumping in and as the season gets done. So you need to like make a decision. So I don't know how this is going to work out. It's going to be a fascinating coaching carousel. There's like I saw a stat. There's $156 million being paid out to fired coaches so far in this recruiting or in this carousel cycle, which is wild.
Well, it's kind of looking where
168.
Maybe we don't give these coaches big contracts. Like we're throwing, like these colleges are throwing money around like they're printing it. And the best part now is if you are LSU and you, let's say they go after Franklin, he doesn't need the money. And they actually talked about that on ESPN today, where right now we have two coaches who they have, and it might have been Lane. They're like, they have generational wealth now,
Right?
like, $50 million paid out over 10 years. So where they're going to go next, it's not for the money. It's their next challenge. Like, where are they going to where do they believe they're going to have the best challenge, the biggest impact, But I kind of like, there might need to be like a salary cap on some of these coaches or something, because if you're going to say we're going to give a coach $50 million for 10 years, you better hope, like, I don't care how bad it gets. For that amount of money, you're keeping that guy for 10 years. And you're getting every dollar out of him, because if you're going to say, you know what, after 2 years, 3 years, it's just not working, it's not worth it, we're still going to give you your money, but we need you to leave, and then we're going to pay somebody else big money to come in. Like, the colleges might need a financial advisor. All these students that are going for degrees for financial stuff, one of them's got to get hired, because there's no like bigger failing business in a college, like college football, anything. Like it makes no sense.
At some point, these colleges will stop with the big buyouts, right? They just have to. Or they have to find a way to front load the money so the buyouts aren't big, or do something like Penn State did, which Penn State wrote language into the contract that says you have to look for a different job. It's in your contract. You have to make an attempt to look for a different job, and then we pay the balance. Now, can Franklin still spurn Penn State and go to a place like Oklahoma State, who might not have a lot of money, and only get, I don't know, $500,000 from them, and then make Penn State pay him $7.5 million a year until his contract's paid off? Yeah, he could. But then at least Oklahoma State, if Franklin doesn't work out there, can move on from him without huge buyouts. So something absolutely have to be done about these coaches' buyouts. What that is, I don't know. But Kirk Cignetti, if he's getting $11.6 million and is the highest paid college football coach. Whoever signs with LSU is going to be 13. Whoever signs with Florida is going to be north of 13. Penn State's probably going to be somewhere in the $12 million range, whoever that is. Speaking of those three jobs, Florida, LSU, Penn State, which job to you is the best job?
I would the best one right now would probably be probably LSU or no Penn State, or I just said the wrong two, Florida.
so I
in my head was Florida.
Yeah.
But then I was like, no, LSU. No, wait, no, yeah.
I actually think your second team, you said Penn State, is the right choice in my mind. My problem with Florida is they'll get tired of you after 3 seasons by. Even Dan Mullins, 31-9, made an SEC title game, and then just didn't win the big game enough, didn't want to shake the boosters' hands, didn't want to go on the recruiting trail. Well, all that is solved with the GM now, right? So, bye. Florida doesn't get the grace in my eyes because they roll through coaches. LSU is the same way, but clearly they're you have to be the exact right person to take the LSU coaching job, right? I think Coach O proved that, right? Coach O was an LSU guy, and even that he got ran out of town. Hit them in Florida, kind of same thing. They'll get tired of you after 3 years. Penn State, okay, just go 10-2, make the college football playoff, win a big game. That's all you got to do. So you just got to find a coach to win a big game.
Yeah, but I think you're also looking at the coaches, I think, are looking and going, okay, Penn State's obviously not giving the resources to Franklin to beat teams like Ohio State, to beat Michigan. So what if you are going and interviewing them, the first question you got to ask is, I need a blank check. Not for me, but for this team. If you want to win, we need to spend money. Not on the stadium to fit an extra 5,000 people for the BS whiteout that we rant and rave about for the one time that we'll play, and chances are it's not even against a good team. It's like UCLA and other Michigan State. But you need to give me the ability to just go out and say, hey, how much 5-star quarterback? Yeah, right there. Cash, money. Let's go.
But it wasn't like Penn State's roster is depleted of talent, right?
No. Well, coming into next year?
No, like the current roster as constructed, right? It's not like they didn't have dudes.
No, they held on to a quarterback too long. They were just like, oh yeah, just keep coming back. Like, Drew was just there too long that they never. You're seeing exactly what the problem is. You have no depth now at quarterback. I mean, Grunkmeyer played as good as he was going to against Iowa.
Yeah,
but again, this would have been their starting quarterback next year. Granted, if they would have not gotten anyone in the portal or any recruits in, but you totally walked away from your running game, which was kind of your bread and butter last year, minus Tyler Warren 50 times. But they spent money to bring they spent money to bring in players, but they weren't using them.
Yeah,
like they brought in I want to say Perez, and I know that's not his name.
Pena.
From Syracuse, who was Syracuse's number one wide receiver with Kyle McCord the year before. And, he's not getting the ball. Why is he not getting the ball? That should be a number one priority because you're spending money to bring him in.
Yeah.
But, again, I still think Cole Nicky's got to go. The coordinator's got to go. I mean, minus Jim Knowles. But your offensive coordinator's got to go. You have to reinvent the wheel at Penn State now.
which is what Kolnicki was brought in to do, which was reinvent the wheel, because previously, prior to Andy, the problem was the offense, especially in big games against teams like Ohio State and Michigan. And so now you're up a creek without a paddle. I have always been of the mindset since his firing that they shouldn't have fired Franklin, but they should have gone to Franklin and say, you need to make staff changes, especially on the offensive side of the ball, because clearly something is just not working. I think an underrated story that did happen over the weekend, and this actually happened on Saturday before Texas's game with Mississippi State, and I'm not sure anyone saw it because people really weren't commenting on it, but I think it's big now. Sark's representatives, Steve Sarkisian's representatives, have made it known to NFL teams he is willing to listen to NFL job offers and is interested in the Titans' head coaching vacancy. So let's just say Sark F's off to the NFL, right? And I do think he would do well in the NFL because he's a terrific offensive play caller, and that is currently what's working in the NFL. Can he build an NFL defense, or not an NFL defense? Can he build an NFL roster and work with an NFL team and be an NFL guy? That remains to be seen. But let's just play a game, right? Sark leaves, goes to the NFL. Now you have Texas, Florida, LSU, all SEC jobs, by the way, Penn State. Now what's the best job?
Oh, probably Texas.
Probably Texas.
Yeah. Texas, especially recruiting alone.
It's easy, man.
NIL is through the roof because now Texas is looking at Texas A&M as their biggest threat, especially if Texas loses to Texas A&M this year. Like, the number one rule in Texas is always to be the best in Texas. Second to beat Oklahoma. But
no, I don't even think that's true.
Well,
I think the number one rule in
beat
Texas.
Oklahoma. Oklahoma might be number one in Texas. 1A beat Oklahoma.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. So you have that, and you just have an unlimited. This is where if Brian Kelly would go there, I would have more faith that Brian Kelly might do better at Texas than he would have at LSU, just because it is a little bit different. Do I think Franklin could do good at Texas? Probably, but they got to figure out Arch first, because that is the big red flag at Texas, is that guy.
He did leave the Mississippi State game. It looked, again, I don't want to speculate, but it looked like a concussion.
They said concussion.
Okay, all right. So they did say concussion, so that's what it looked like. Whether or not he will play this week against Vandy, we'll get into that game kind of on the back half of the podcast here. But I do want to talk about that Mississippi State and Texas game, because you say they got to figure out Arch. And I'm out here to tell you that Arch isn't the problem. Is Arch an issue, and does Arch need to develop? Where on earth is this game? Right here. Yes, absolutely. But they ran the ball between their running backs for 67 yards on Saturday. Now, they did have to throw it because they were down 31-14. So they did have to run it in the second, but they were having no success on the ground at all. They squeak away with an overtime win against Mississippi State, who at this point I just feel bad for. And if Brandon Walker wasn't a fan of them, I would feel just really horrible. But man, does he annoy me. Did you see that Texas scored their go-ahead touchdown in overtime right in his face?
Oh yeah.
So Texas, and even last year, their offensive line was okay, but it wasn't great. So I think Texas has some bigger red flags than just Arch Manning. So I think they need someone to come in, if Steve does decide to leave, that understands his clock is always on the hot seat, right? His butt is always on the hot seat until he wins the national championship, and then it's only there until he loses 2 games. And he needs to be a talent developer and maybe someone along the offensive line, because the offensive line, if you can get that right with Texas, I just think you're always going to have weapons on the outside and you're always going to have someone that can sling the rock.
I know, like you're saying, I know what you're saying with the run game. My theory with Texas is the fact that the passing game at Texas is so not a threat at times that it's like Michigan playing defense where you're just so comfortable sitting there and blitzing, handling to run and making Texas throw the ball to, that it's just not a threat until it becomes a threat. You know what I mean? Eventually,
Yeah.
against Mississippi State, it became a threat, and then Mississippi State's defense was just all over the place trying to figure out, the coaches trying to figure out what in the hell is going on and what to do next. But for most of that game, that pass was not a threat, and it was like, well, as long as it's not a threat, we're going to keep just stacking the house. So Texas needs to be a threat from the start of the game, and I think their run game will be fine after. But, I mean, they haven't been a threat. I mean, 16-13 against Kentucky, that's not a threat. It was more of a threat against Oklahoma, though, and they kind of not really ran the ball. They kind of got bailed out with a punt return. But
it was definitely more balanced. Here's what I want to flip to real quick. The Deion Colorado experiment is quickly sliding down a muddy slope. People kind of have lost track of this because Colorado has been lost track of. They are 1-4 in the Big 12 and now 3-5, and they are coming off of, I won't say the worst program beatdown because I'm sure there were some not great in recent memory, but 53-7 on the road against Utah, and it wasn't even close. It wasn't even that close. It was 43-0 at halftime. Utah pushed them around and made it with a backup quarterback, mind you. So is the Deion experiment coming to an end in Boulder, Colorado?
Or, I mean, technically, I'm saying yes, but I don't necessarily think it's the college that's going to end the experiment, because remember when Deion was hired, they had the money for his first 2 years of his contract, but they didn't,
something like that. Yeah,
but they didn't have it for the back end of his contract. I think Deion's health is going to be what pulls him away, because you look at the past 2 years, something has kind of kept him away from the team for most of the off seasons too. So I think his health, he'll be like, maybe you need to step down or step back, whatever. But yeah, I mean, who would have guessed that this experiment would have been came crashing down as it was? It's not like anyone on this podcast has said anything negative about Colorado University, and I don't know. It's like we kind of see it coming, but I don't know.
One name I think people do want to look at is Kalani Sitake, the head coach of the BYU Cougars. They are 8-0, and they are in the top 10 of the AP poll. They went into Iowa State as underdogs, and they actually ruined my 9-leg parlay. I bet 9 straights, and then I put them all in a parlay, right? They were the only reason I didn't win my parlay, and they were my only bet loss on Saturday. So I can pick winners just outside of the podcast parlay. I just want everyone to know that. I'm not completely dumb. I'm just mostly dumb. But BYU is 8-0. Bear Bachmeier, their quarterback, was excellent. He had a QBR of almost 85. He was the team's leading passer and rusher. That concerns me. But they went in and they used 4 turnovers from Rocco Beck to really put the game on ice and put the game away in the second half, because it was a tie game at halftime. Iowa State just was continuing to move the ball up and down the field, and then Rocco Beck threw an interception, and then BYU got all of the momentum after that. So let's talk about BYU. Last year, BYU was in the college football playoff hunt and then lost 2 games late, right? Now they're in the exact same spot, 8-0. Are the BYU Cougars a legitimate threat to the college football playoff?
They would be. I would say that they are a threat, but they're a first round threat. Mainly, I don't think they're good enough to handle the big school like Alabama or Georgia. I don't think they're a threat to I don't think BYU is a threat to them. They get matched up. They play their next games against Texas Tech. Not this weekend, but next weekend. We'll find out there. We'll find out how much of a threat they can be. Texas Tech's backup quarterback, I believe, tore his ACL, so he's out. So we'll see kind of how that affects.
Will Hammond the backup tore his ACL, or the starter?
Maybe it was Morgan. One of them has tore their ACL.
Oh my goodness! Well, that's huge because Hammond played on Saturday. So if it's Hammond, now that changes the Big 12 entirely.
Yes, one of them. One of them is out.
I'll look it up.
Yes. Okay. Hammond is out.
Okay. Well,
yes.
I mean, because Morton has a hamstring injury, I'm pretty sure. So,
if BYU handles Texas Tech, which Texas Tech has looked great all year for most of the year, minus one game against Arizona State. But if they handle that one and they just move on and they handle Cincinnati, they get into the playoff. I think they win that first round game, barring who they're matched up with. But if they get matched up with like I said, the Oklahomas, the Alabama, the Georgia, kind of any of these big, Ole Miss, I don't think they can really hang with them. So first round, I think they're a threat. Second round, not so much.
He has been with Kalani Sitake has been with BYU since 2016. Here is his record at BYU: 9-4, then 4-9, 7-6, 7-6, 11-1 COVID year, 10-3 2021, 8-5. Then they joined the Big 12 conference and go 7-5, and I really thought he was going to get fired. Then he went 11-2 last year, and now 8-0 so far this year. He's a winning coach. He is 80 and 43 overall. I don't know why big time programs, and maybe he doesn't fit the vibe, right? He was the DC. He was the assistant head coach at Utah, so he spent time in Utah, so he knows that region very well. So maybe he doesn't fit the vibe of the South. But if you want a program builder, there's no better guy to go to than Kalani Sitake, because I can't imagine it's very easy to build a winning culture and program at BYU just with the amount of talent or the different levels of talent you're going to get. Not saying they won't have talent, but there's a different standard at BYU than there are other places for sure.
And it's also kind of in the same boat as Notre Dame, where it's a religion-based college. So
entity.
There's a lot different rules. It's a whole nother set of challenges.
For sure. All right, so the Music City train keeps chugging along. I mentioned that in the open. Missouri, if you look at the stats, outplayed Vanderbilt. They outgained them, out first downed them, same amount of penalty yards, had more third down conversions, was 4 or 5 on fourth down conversions, had 13 more minutes of time of possession. However, Vanderbilt made timely plays. They made a goal line stop in which Bo Prabula probably ended his season on. And then Vanderbilt went down and scored right before kind of the end of the game, the 2-minute timeout there. And that was really the game, a hard defensive battle. So Diego Pavia wasn't great, but he wasn't terrible. And sometimes that's all you need. Vanderbilt at 7-1. Robert, are they a college football playoff threat?
Well, unfortunately for Vanderbilt, they are in the SEC. So if they were in probably any other conference, I would say yes, they would be. But the unfortunate, I mean, they got Texas, Auburn, Kentucky, Tennessee. It's possible, they should beat Texas, especially if Arch is not playing. Tennessee doesn't really impress me that much. Kentucky's kind of like that sneaky game that they just keep it close and they probably get you on a last-second field goal. And then there's Auburn, and it's Hugh Freeze. Hugh Freeze is fighting for his life there. So we will figure it. If they make the playoffs, they could be the team where they play Alabama or Georgia. They could beat one of those two. They play it hard enough where they're seasoned. So I would say I think they are they're a playoff team. They just have to make it there.
Are they in the same kind of category as BYU, where you think they win one game, but the second game probably not?
Barring their matchup, yeah, probably.
Okay.
If they get stuck against Ohio State, that's a tough one to. I think they would give Ohio State more of an issue because of Pavia's running. So Ohio State's really going to be, and that would be a really big test for Ohio State too. And I think that's where we would find out more about Ohio State than we would about Vanderbilt.
They do. Vanderbilt does have two dominant edge rushers that wreak havoc for people. So I do think that might give them, if they can just rush 4 and get home with 2 and drop 7 into coverage, I think that would be a huge win. I want to shout out Drew Mestamaker. He threw for 600 yards on Friday night, 608 and 4 touchdowns in a 54-20 win against Charlotte. He is going to make some Power 5 team very happy. But I do want to say this. North Texas's head coach is Eric Morris. He is 18-15. However, he was the guy who recognized Cam Ward and brought along Cam Ward. Now he has Mestamaker. And he had someone. He was at offensive coordinator for Washington State and Texas Tech. And then he was the head coach at Incarnate Word. So he has played with some really, really good quarterbacks and has developed quarterbacks really, really well. He is 39 years old. So does a big-time program take a chance on this guy to maybe develop some quarterback talent? I don't know. I'm looking it up now.
That's another scheme fit for him, though. If Iowa says, "Hey, come here," it's a death sentence for him. Because that's not his game. Like, his game is not turning around and handing the ball off. He's a gunslinger. A team that would benefit very much from a quarterback like that, who has a very good history of developing gunslingers, Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Now, if Lane Kiffin would leave there, and let's say he goes to Texas, there's already a kid in North Texas. And let's say Arch leaves and goes somewhere like Ole Miss.
So Eric Morris has developed and recruited or had his hands in the following quarterbacks: Patrick Mahomes, Baker Mayfield, Cam Ward, John Mateer, and now Mestamaker. So also, if the Texas job opens up, do they go get him and bring Mestamaker? Because that's been the more popular thing. So he's someone to keep an eye on, right? Like, I could see Florida. Florida wants this high-powered offense that scores a gaggle of points. He'll give you that. Now, will he have a defense that brings along with that? I don't know. And again, Texas is very different than Florida, just geographically, and everything else that goes with that, the programs included. So he's just someone I would want to keep my eye on. Okay, we have bored you for 40 minutes, so let's go ahead and flip the page and look ahead to Week 10. Kennesaw State, again, is playing on a Tuesday night. And they won last Tuesday 45-26. They are now playing UTEP this week.
There's a team that's going to cover. It's Kennesaw State.
It's Kennesaw State. Okay, great. So we're both taking Kennesaw State there. On Wednesday, we have Florida International taking on Missouri State, who's 2-1 in Conference USA, 4-3 overall. First, I think this is their first year in the FBS. Who you got there?
Mizzou State.
Okay, Mizzou State. Thursday night, I almost put this one in our 6-pack. We have Marshall 2-1 in the Sun Belt, 4-3 overall, traveling to Coastal Carolina, also 4-3, but 3-1 in the Sun Belt. Battle for second position in the Sun Belt, because the battle for top position in the Sun Belt is coming up in our 6-pack of games. Marshall or Coastal Carolina?
I would like the Chanticleers, please.
Okay. All right. I'm actually going to go with Marshall. Friday night, does North Carolina finally get an ACC win on the road versus Syracuse? They are now 2.5-point dogs.
I'm going to say that North Carolina gets them.
Okay.
If at the end of at how we are right now, looking at Syracuse, if you would have told me at the beginning of the season, hey, just so you know, Syracuse is going to be 3-5, 1-4 in the ACC, I don't think I would have believed you, because Syracuse looked very strong at the beginning of the season.
Well, yeah, and then Angeli went out for the season,
yes.
Right?
And then it can't go all crashing down.
Right.
Remember, they beat Clemson.
Yes,
Clemson.
they did. Yes, they did. However, that isn't as strong of a win as we all think it is now, right?
You know, you have Clemson, North Carolina, and Syracuse all pretty much on the bottom.
Yeah, which is why, if you would have told me Clemson would have been on the bottom of the ACC, I would have been like, absolutely not.
Yes.
And then if you won, you can go watch winless Sam Houston State take on Louisiana Tech at 8 o'clock down there in Louisiana. All right, but let's go ahead and get to Saturday games. And let's go ahead and look up this 6-pack. And let's go ahead and start in Austin, Texas. Right? It is Vandy taking on the Longhorns of Texas in Austin. Can Diego Pavia keep this train rolling? I am trying to buy time because I'm trying to find the game so I know all the details of it. It's somewhere around here. I don't know where it is. Robert, can Vandy keep the train rolling?
I think they're going to. Texas is coming off that super emotional win against Mississippi State, which they shouldn't have. They shouldn't have won the game, because Mississippi State should have just put it away, put it to bed, put it to rest, put it pin in the hat. Let's win the game. But I think Vandy will not give them that opportunity. I don't think it's going to be a big win by any means, but I think Vandy takes care of business. Pavia gets it rolling.
I agree with you. I think Pavia is the difference, and between the two, if you would have said, hey, who do you think the better quarterback was in the preseason, Diego Pavia or Arch Manning, I probably would have been like, I've seen what Diego Pavia can do. I like the potential of Arch Manning. Boy, would I have been wrong. Diego Pavia is a monster. He should be in the Heisman consideration just because of what he means to that program. You take Pavia out of Vanderbilt, I do not think Vanderbilt's number 9 in the country, and I think everyone agrees. So go ahead and give me Vanderbilt, because their defense isn't terrible either, right? They have held down. Amon Hardy held him down. Alabama, they had on the ropes in the first half until Diego Pavia actually kind of turned that ball over. So if Diego Pavia plays turnover-free football, Vanderbilt wins the game. If Diego Pavia has 2 or more turnovers, they're going to lose in Austin, because I do think the Texas defense is good enough to keep them in the game long enough until Arch either figures it out if he's playing, But if Arch isn't playing, I like Vanderbilt, even if Pavia turns the ball over. That game is noon on ABC to fill in for Simeon. Noon on Fox. We're going to do this real fast. Does Ohio State cover the 20.5 they're favored by?
I want to say yes.
Yeah.
But if there is ever a game that this BS Penn State team is going to win, or at least make it close, it is this game.
Penn State's getting somebody.
Yeah.
And they have Ohio State, and then they have
Indiana.
They're getting one of them.
And I have a better chance believing they would get Ohio State than they would get Indiana. Indiana's offense, I think, is better than Ohio State's. They're definitely more explosive.
I agree.
But Ohio State's defense, I think, is better than Indiana's. And I think Penn State's defense can keep Ohio State down enough to where they slug it.
So kind of turn it into a Michigan game from last year.
Yeah. Which is how you beat Ohio State.
Oh, yeah, for
you
sure.
You slow the game down, keep the offense off the field.
You're not going to beat them 45-42.
No.
Right. You're going to beat them 17-20. Something like that. All right, so let's go ahead and then flip it forward to the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. I guess the city of Jacksonville has politely asked people to stop calling it that. Guess what? No one knows this podcast exists except for you 114 people that are subscribed. Thank you for subscribing. Like, share, comment, do all that stuff so we can bring you more comment. Georgia is only favored by 7.5, which surprises the heck out of me because Florida doesn't have Billy Napier and DJ Lagway is on good right now. So this is a neutral site game in Jacksonville, as I said. The other thing that I think is being overlooked is Gunnar Stockton is playing so well. The stats in terms of passing yards are very similar to that of DJ Lagway. 1553 for Stockton, 1513 for Lagway. Stockton has 10 touchdowns. Lagway has 9 touchdowns. Now, Stockton only has 1 interception. Lagway has 9. Here's the thing that I've been really impressed with Gunnar Stockton. It has been his command of the offense. Gets into the right play. Always seems to run the right play when they need to. And if the play goes wrong, he doesn't make the play worse. Georgia's defense may or may not be good. They have kind of been on this roller coaster ride of some weeks they're good, some weeks they're bad. Some weeks they're bad and then they're good. And some weeks they're bad and then they're good, or good and then they're bad. So, what version of Georgia are we getting? I don't know. Give me the Bulldogs to win the game and give me the Bulldogs to cover.
Yeah, I don't see how good Lord, how Georgia doesn't win this by 14, borderline 21.
Someone knows something we must not know, right?
Yeah. Tell you what they didn't know, Iowa State.
Old
Vegas thought they were going to pull a fast one on everyone.
No. Absolutely not. All right, so you like Georgia. I like Georgia. We both like Georgia big, which means bet on Florida, all the points, and maybe to win outright. All right, USC, Nebraska. I could have gone Oklahoma, Tennessee, but in the grand scheme of things, that game really doesn't mean much. Maybe each team has an outside shot at the college football playoff. Tennessee, because they're still ranked 14 right there, so they just got to keep winning. I kind of want to get some other teams, get some other conference recognition, because I am getting a little SEC fatigue. So we are going to Nebraska and USC. Number 23 USC travels to Lincoln, Nebraska at night. Nebraska's wearing their first ever black shirt uniforms. It's basically they're wearing black. Okay. FPI gives USC a 72% chance to win this game. Jaden Maiava has played on time, and if Lincoln Riley would just not take the ball out of his hands at any moment of the game with trick plays or anything like that, USC is a very dangerous team if somehow they would make the playoff because of that offense. What worries me, or what on the Nebraska side, is their rush defense. Their rush defense is not that great, and USC has been able to run the ball this year. Their leading rusher, Wayman Jordan, has almost 600 yards on the ground, and then Mekhi Lemon on the outside has just been phenomenal with 6 touchdowns and almost 800 yards. They are favored by 6.5 on the road. I would like to actually take USC to cover because it's Nebraska's rushing defense against Lincoln Riley. He'll run the ball all game if you let him. So give me USC to beat Nebraska on the road.
I do like USC in this matchup. However, this to me, I feel like might be the game where Nebraska finally figures out this football thing. This thing that's been just eluding this place in Lincoln, Nebraska that's for so long, this kind of also feels like it might be a good time for Dylan Raiola to kind of be the quarterback that a lot of people, including myself, thought he was going to be. It's time for a ranked win. They couldn't beat Michigan. They should have, but they didn't. Let's go with the Cornhuskers on this one.
Okay. Alrighty. So you're rocking with the Cornhuskers. I'm rocking with the Trojans. Number 17 Cincinnati is quietly sitting atop the Big 12. And I say quietly because they did lose week 1 to Nebraska. But since then, they've been on a little bit of a run, and they're walking in a number 24 ranked Utah as 8.5-point dogs at 10:15 p.m. on ESPN. The FPI gives Utah an 80% chance to win the game. Cincinnati's last 5 games has been a 21-point win at Baylor. Just destroyed Oklahoma State, which everyone does. They beat UCF, yes, by 9. They beat Iowa State, the words are starting to fail me, by 8, and Kansas by 3. Meanwhile, Oklahoma got routed by Texas Tech, beat up on West Virginia, beat up on Arizona State, lost to BYU, and then beat up on Colorado. I would say Utah's level of competition overall has been a little worse than Cincinnati's overall competition. I will take the Utes to win because it's a 10:15 start, which is a midnight start for the athletes out of Cincinnati. However, I do like them to cover the 8.5 that it's currently sitting at. So give me Utah to win, but Cincinnati to cover. Brendan Swordsby, 20 touchdowns. Get this, Rob. 1 interception. 1.
Yeah, that's a pretty nifty little stat there. Yeah, give me Cincinnati to win.
Okay, I love it.
Yeah, short, sweet, to the point, dog.
Hey, it's what you do. Well, you're going to have to be short and sweet and to the point unless if you've really been a college football junkie, because I'm pulling this one out of the hat. This is for
Go ahead and tell me Hawaii and San Jose State.
No, but I will tell you Arkansas State and Troy.
Oh, okay.
The battle for first place in the Sun Belt is taking place. Where's Troy? Louisiana? I don't even know.
I think so.
So this is for battle for first place in the West Division. Troy is 4-0 in the West. Arkansas State is 3-1. Now, Southern Miss is also 4-0, but for podcast and promoting purposes, this is for first place in the Western Conference. So, Troy and Arkansas, I know very little about them. I do know Troy is favored by 7.5. Arkansas State, it looks like passes the ball a little more than Troy. Where their defensive lie and offensive lie in rank, I have no idea. Give me the home team Troy to keep it rolling in the Sun Belt and go to 5-0.
You know, I'm gonna agree that Troy wins, but I'll say Arkansas State the plus 7.5. Yeah, I think
Okay,
that
all
would
right.
that
They
that
cover.
feels right. Yeah.
Okay, all right. That feels right to you. All right, cheapest ticket, most expensive ticket. I believe the cheapest ticket does in fact belong to North Carolina and Syracuse. You can go to that game for a grand old $4. So
That's awesome.
if you want to make your way up to Syracuse, New York, go ahead and do that. Most expensive ticket, if you looked in the preseason, people probably would have said, oh, Penn State, Ohio State this weekend. Absolutely. Well, you can go to them for $79, which is a steal. The most expensive ticket, I am looking,
I got 238.
Oklahoma, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Yeah, by far. All right, so Tennessee, Oklahoma. You can go to Knoxville, Tennessee, Neyland Stadium at night, which they are wearing their Trond theme uniforms. It's their black uniforms with their power tee in bright yellow or bright orange. Apologize, Tennessee fans. I know everyone just hated on me from Tennessee. Hate from Tennessee.
The only good Tennessee uniform is their smoky grays.
I'll tell you what, to go to Doak Campbell for $9, that's not bad. I'd go to Doak Campbell for $9.
Meh.
Yeah, you know.
Why not?
All right. It is par lizzle to mizzle, as we have now ran out of things to talk about, unless if Robert just shocks me with something off the cuff right now. All right. So, we have not been good in this parlay. We have won 2 times, and I think they were weeks 1 and 2. Well, week 0 and 1, technically. Outside of that, Robert's been good. I was good early, bad late. Simeon kind of been bad all the way through. Robert was bad early, good late. So we just can't get it together. All right. So let's start with Simeon. Are we rolling with Tulane? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah. Let's give it to him.
All right. So
Let's keep that streak going.
Tulane is favored by 3.5 on the road to UTSA. UTSA is 3-4. Tulane is 6-1, I believe. So you might be thinking, how's Tulane only favored by 3.5? We don't know, and that's why it scares us. We are going to take Tulane money line. So Simeon picked 2. He took Tulane money line. He said either Tulane money line or Indiana minus whatever they are. Indiana's minus 21.5. So we could make it a 4-leg parlay and just throw Indiana in there because why bet against Kirk Cinetti? But we will go Tulane money line for this. For my leg of the parlay, I did get this signed off by Robert. Navy and North Texas. Drew Mestamaker, speaking of. And Navy, both teams score a bunch of points. This game is at noon. I will be watching it because it's on ESPN2, and both teams score, if you did not hear me, a bunch of points. I locked them in at 64.5. It's now 65.5. I am still comfortable at 65.5 because I think this is a 31-38 type of game. Do you disagree? Am I wrong in thinking that?
I don't think you're wrong.
All righty. So that means that I am wrong and people should take the under. By the way, Navy 7-0 and 5-0 in the American. North Texas Mean Green are 7-1 and 3-1 in the American. So this is a huge opportunity for both teams to start making a case, especially with the fact USF fell last week to Memphis, making a case for a group of Power 5 slot. The conference champion, highest conference champion outside of the Power 4 gets to go. Navy has scored 42, 32, 34. Their low was to Rice 21 and then Tulsa 42. North Texas was 54, 55. They scored 36 in a loss, 36 in a win, and 45 in overtime versus Army. I like it. Give me the over 64 and a half. North Texas Navy.
You know, originally I the Penn State Ohio State, I was going to do the over under.
Okay.
It was 40 right now it's 43 and a half. Is that what it was? Okay. And I still think that is going to go over, but there's just, the Vandy, Texas, Vandy plus 2.5.
It's staring at
because
you.
yeah, and because I'm choosing to switch, that means everyone and their brother and sister needs to go and do the over for the 43.5 because
Yeah.
I'm going to go with a Vandy plus 2.5.
So you're telling me that when me and Simeon get it right and you get it wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I've been right the past 2 weeks. You guys have been wrong the past 2 weeks. So I figure it's time for me to be wrong, you guys to be right.
All right. You're just sharing the love with everyone,
That's
right?
what I'm trying to do.
You don't want anyone to feel left out, and I do appreciate that. All right, everybody. This has been the 4th and 1 podcast. Thank you for being here. Like, subscribe, share. Go follow us on TikTok, 4th and 1 Pod, 4th and 1 Podcast, Instagram. Make sure you wash those hands because y'all are filthy animals, and we'll see you next week.